Hello everyone and welcome to SplitSecond's Instant Commander, the series where we give you fresh strategies for commanders that are either established or still looking for a path. Today we're here to show you guys Orvar the All Farm, a deck meant to have you play non-singleton commander and abuse this possibility to the fullest. Please keep in mind that our list is budgetless but with plenty of room for tweaks regarding each player's play groups. Regardless, we will still provide you with budget options that can also help you adapt the deck's power level to your play group. If you want even more, just ask in the comments below, join us on Discord or leave a comment on the decklist at Moxfield. Now, who is Orvar? Have you ever wanted to play non-singleton commander? Abuse some weird cards that barely see cEDH play? This super cool looking shapeshifter lets you do all that and more due to his second paragraph that reads: whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, if it targets one or more other permanents you control, create a token that's a copy of one of those permanents. This lets you use plenty of targeted spells to clone any of your permanents, even lands. That's right, ever wanted to have infinite lands and storm off? Now you can. Now let's see the game plan. This deck aims to pack most of the interaction spells possible, since they can interact with your opponents or clone stuff you control. Most of the other cards we are packing have buyback, so you can use them and abuse them on your own stuff. Because of this, the deck can run as win conless, for better efficiency, or you can throw stuff in like Thassa's Oracle or Blue Sun Zenith like effects in the mix. As a mono blue deck, your plan is to slowly build up your board and interact at instant speed whenever you must. If you go a turn cycle without interacting with your opponents, then you may consider spending one of these on your stuff to duplicate it and progress your board. With the proper setup, you can finish the game in a myriad of ways, so let's see the combo.
Here's Johnny!
Depending on the cards you have at your disposal, or the board state at hand, you can follow different lines, but the main objective is to get a hold of cards like Clock Spinning, Mind Games, or the best of the three, Whim of Volrath. This way, we are able to target almost any permanent as long as we have mana and get permanent copies of them. That's where cards like High Tide and cost reducers like Baral or Sapphire Medallion come into play. When we are casting a spell, we announce our choices, in case there are alternative or additional costs that will be paid, like buyback, only after the cost reduction effects come into account. Therefore, all we need is 3 or 4 mana to cast any of these and target Cloud of Fairies. The copy will enter and untap 2 lands. If we are under High Tide effect, 2 islands will produce 4 mana to cast these spells. If we have a cost reduction effect or a whim at hand, then we are netting positive mana, and from there we can copy anything. Other lines, like the list made by Ben, Hire and Eric, have similar combo lines, but this time including Coveted Jewel, as this does 2 things that you want to do: generate mana for another whim cast and draw cards on its ETB. If you are facing a lot of null rod effects in your meta, and this card is at higher CMC, this might be not the best variant, but feel free to test both lines and other things as well, as this is a commander with a high ceiling and full of future neat interactions to come as new cards get released. We will add both deck lists in the description below. In case of any anti-ETB effects like Ushbringer or Torpor Orb, you are still able to go off with cost reducers and or 2 High Tide effects online. That's right, you can go for High Tide, Snapcaster and High Tide again, and all islands will produce triple blue. From there, one island can pray for Whim with buyback and generate another island to keep on. Everything at instant speed, which, alongside Blue Sun Zenith-like cards, allows you to win at instant speed. Similar to Kenrith and Dockside lines, where you need to have an opponent at X artifacts to loop Dockside for infinite mana, this deck can also achieve similar outcomes, where you can clone one existing Dockside on the table via Phantasmal Image or Dance of Many, and then target it for added copies and added treasures. Phantasmal Image is sacrificed in the process, but you can stack the triggers so you get another image before the sacrifice triggered. With infinite treasures, you can choose your outlet. Now, let's check the deck's strengths and weaknesses. This deck is generally good against commander-centric strats, farm decks, and creature-centric decks. This deck can struggle against faster combo decks, heavy stacks decks, and heavy interaction decks. Now that you know the general theory behind Orvar, let's take a deeper look into our strategies. Strategy number 1. Early Orvar gets the worm. As a deck heavily built around this mere commander, we want to cast Orvar as early as possible, and therefore we shouldn't be shy with our mulligans. With the recent release of Jeweled Lotus, the turn 1 Orvar can now rely on a single card rather than a couple of Moxen. Casting Orvar turn 1 or 2 enables us to protect this sliver when interaction or removal comes his way. In case it doesn't, we can start using our interaction spells in our own permanents to progress the board. Cards like Winds of Rebuke can be used on an opponent problematic permanent, or if there's nothing relevant to deal with, you can use it in a permanent of your own to duplicate it, even if it means casting it again next turn. It can also be used proactively to disrupt any tutor to the top. Strategy number 2. Ramping in blue. Blue is a color that lacks good mana dorks or rampant growth-like effects, so it relies mostly on artifact ramp. In this deck, however, we are able to ramp with land tokens or artifact tokens. Cards like Clock Spinning or Dream's Grip can ramp us permanent tokens of artifacts or even lands in case of any pesky collector oofs laying around. This enables some potential turns where the mana you start with ends up being more as you are storming off. For instance, you can use 1 blue to cast Tweedle on a mana crypt and suddenly you have 4 generic mana to spend, permanently. If there are no rot effects in play, you can do it on an island, and you just got yourself something even harder to interact with. Add a high tide to it and you got yourself a blue-dark ritual. Strategy number 3. Duality in interaction. As said before, this deck is packed with interaction, and even if you're not running this list or you want to improve it upon your meta, the main idea behind most of the instants you see is to be able to target your permanents too, not just your opponents, and if possible to be modal so you can have different results out of it. A good example is Trickery Charm. It's not only a card that can duplicate a creature, but it can also index you for 4, in case you're out of creatures or really need to smoothen out your next draws. Depending on your meta and the speed you want to run this deck, you can add this kind of effects at a higher CMC and broader effects, or keep them at low CMC and enough just to be able to follow the deck's route. Strategy number 4. Permanent Draw. Most blue decks run the usual 1 CMC cantrips like Ponder, Preordain or Brainstorm. However, in this deck, since we aim to swarm off of infinite buyback spells, the slots used for cantripping can be used in cards such as Omen of the Sea, that are permanents that we can later target and copy for added value. In an era of Hull Breachers, Brainstorm tends to be a good card early game, but a big trap late game. If someone responds with a boat-sinking pirate, we believe that's not the boat you want to be into. If you're onto Kaldheim's snowy theme and prefer to run a full pack of snow islands, you can go for Arkham's Astrolabe, that can help on achieving Metalcraft for Mox Opal. Depending on the meta, cards like Spreading Seas can be used as another multifunctional interaction card. It can draw your card, shuts down Cradles and other utility lands, and adds to your devotion. That's right, let's talk about that. Strategy number 5. How devout are you? In a monocolored deck full of cloning capability, devotion is something we can and should consider. Nictus, Shrine to Nyx, can be another combo piece when looping with Cloud of Fairies, or can also help you filter all that colorless mana you have from your soul rings. Casting early creatures, like Spellseeker or Spellstutter Sprite, will slowly build up your devotion. If you prefer to add some draw X spells, this land even helps you with that if you're not looping and going infinite. Strategy number 6. Dramatically early. This Health Beast is not an infinite mana outlet, but with its ability you are able to play early Isochron Scepters with different imprinted cards other than Dramatic Reversal, as later on you are able to target it and copy it to imprint Dramatic Reversal or another value card. With this in mind, you are free to drop an early Scepter with a bounce spell in it or maybe a counterspell and accrue value from there. As the game goes on, you can then Tweedle it for another Scepter and another imprinted card. At a point, you are actually able to put together Dramatic Scepter, and if you have a buyback spell in hand, you are now able to infinitely copy whatever the spell targets. The best one you have is Whim of Volrath. With it, you can even cast it on your lands and have a bajillion of them. Here is where permanent spells that draw cards come into account. Omen of the Sea, Mind Stone, etc. By having those around already, you have yourself the outlet you needed. Draw your deck and finish them! Strategy number 7. Fatality. By the point you are putting together the final pieces, your opponents might be asking, so how do you win? Let's answer that now. Being a win-conless deck, you can have them scoop in a myriad of ways. We will show you a bunch of I-win scenarios that you can come across once you have managed infinite mana or draw. You can populate your board with infinite creatures. You can bounce every permanent to their owner's hands. Be even more devilish, casting Hull Breacher and Time Twister after that. Or you can tweak your deck to have cards like Reality Shift that can deal with pesky creatures and mill their decks with Isochron. Add Thassa's Oracle to the mix, you can win without even needing to draw your deck. Add Blue Sun-like effects and make them draw their decks to death. Other synergies. Despite Orvar's wording specifying other permanents and preventing you from copying him, the deck is actually running the latest blue hottie, Sakashima of 1000 Faces, which can come in as Orvar's twin, allowing for each cast to have 2 triggers, one from each, and this way having more permanent copies of anything, which can help you on the combo lines or simply adding more value overall. When Sakashima is out, you can use other clone effects to have more Goblin Orvars and hence more clone triggers. Another point to have in account is Dockside Extortionist is an all-timer now, and people running it will be thirsty to slam it down and get all the value they can from your marbles. For this, we have some good techs, like Flashy, Crafty, Cutpurse. Pirate stealing from a pirate? Dockside will be irate. You can also surprise your opponents with a recently printed Mystic Reflection, and deprive them of all the treasures as the Extortionist becomes something like a Land War Elves. Most of the decks out there are running Consultation Oracle lines, and these lovely hands can kill them as soon as they attempt to win. Mikokuru and Cephalid Colosseum can also be used to accrue value from an end-of-turn Hull Breacher, where you spend 3 lands to draw a card and generate 3 treasures. Or you can target an opponent with potential interaction with Cephalid Colosseum, so they discard 3 and you get 3 treasures. Another interesting fact to have in consideration is that most counterspells in cEDH are actually non-creature counterspells, and this interesting fairy can actually get most of them accompanied with Orvar's Changeling ability. This also enables you to bypass some of your opponent's counters, since targeting the fairy will automatically trigger for a copy, so even if you cast Mind Games on her, you'll have another fairy ETBing to try to counter the problematic spell. Take into account, if the number of fairies is reduced enough by the time of the trigger resolution, it won't counter the designated spell. Budget options. In this section, we will be covering some of the budget options you can use for most of the expensive or harder to get cards in this deck. We will only use this section for cards pricing over $20, but if you want more options, just poke us in the comments. Also, it should be noted that we at SplitSecond encourage you to test any deck with proxies. Unfortunately, this deck does have some pricey cards. However, it is definitely playable on a budget versus mid-power decks. Let's start with ramp. It is definitely an important aspect of any powerful deck, but you can still alleviate costs from cards like Jeweled Lotus, Mox Diamond, Mana Crypt, etc. Cards like Mox Ember won't ramp to your commander and won't benefit from being copied, but are still good options on a budget for a 0 CMC rock. Other than that, we recommend you stick to the lowest possible CMC you can and entering the battlefield untapped. A Sky Diamond can be a good card in other decks, but not as great in this one, since copying it won't net you positive mana as it enters tapped. Always prioritize low CMC and entering battlefield untapped. In terms of counterspells like Force of Will or Negation, Mana Drain or Fierce Guardianship, you can still find cheaper alternatives like Spell Pierce, Negate, Trick Bind and Tail's End can be good inclusions as they can hit Thassa's Oracle triggers. If you're not into reserve list nor proxying, Gilded Drake can be traded for another utility creature, like the Mage Shooter's Trinket or Tribute can help you get procs or even cost reducing effects like the Sapphire Medallion. You can use it as a flex slot to add meta-oriented cards. Time Twister can be traded easily for Echo of Eons, and it serves most as refueling your hand, since the deck tends to lack in card draw if you fail to stick Remoras or Studies. It's also great alongside Hull Breacher or Narset for a possible early scoop. As far as land goes, you can easily change the City of Traitors or Ancient Tomb for Coral Toll and maybe Guildless Commons. The Coral can actually be copied by Thespin Stage and allow you to combo off without High Tide. The fetchlands are not extremely necessary, but they are crucial to get Mystic Sanctuary. If you don't own them, take into account not adding too many non-islands to the deck as you are on High Tide. Command Beacon is a good inclusion, since you can crack it to get Orvar in response to a wheel and get discarded and clone something this way. Arch of Vraska or Cryptic Caves can be used as outlets once you have infinite mana to dry your whole deck. In conclusion, Orvar is a deck packed full of interaction that can be used both in an interactive way or controlish approach. This way, we would advise you to try out this Dragon Insect, as only then you will learn the full potential and much more. This sums up our instant commander for Orvar the All form. We totally recommend you guys to check out the decklist we're using and make the necessary tweaks you need to show your friends the full potential behind this cool looking changeling. Remember, if you need help adapting this deck to your budget or meta or have any ideas or suggestions to help improve it, come hang in our Discord server, the link for which is in the description below. We'd like to start the credits by thanking our current patrons, and especially Izanagi, Stefan, TJ Rapp, Mike Purr, Ajimo, Eated Shield, Drunken Housecat, V, RJ and Starfall, our stack breakers. If you want to support us, you can do so by liking this video, subscribing or by becoming a patron yourself. Join us again next week for more SplitSecond videos. See you all then.